Hey, Teddy K here for the Best Buy blog, and in this video review, take a look at the Fitbit Charge 4, the latest fitness band activity tracker from the company that has a few new features that make it among the best available. As the old cliche goes, it's not what's on the outside, but what's on the inside, and that's especially true of the Fitbit Charge 4 because it's almost identical to the Charge 3 on the outside. There's not a dramatic difference in terms of form factor or design, weight, any of those things. In fact, so much so that you could still use the same bands. We'll get to that later. Now, the key thing is what's inside. So, new features, there are three new features that I've identified as being really key here. First is the built-in GPS. Now, it's kind of surprising this is the first fitness band that Fitbit has made. I mean, the Fitbit Ionic has built-in GPS, but as far as that's a smartwatch. This is a fitness band. And this is the first one that Fitbit has done that actually has that built in. It's surprising. But it's finally here, and it works well. If you're going to be outdoors and you're going to be going on a run or a walk or whatever it is you're going to be doing, and you want to know the actual route that you've taken, you want to actually see it on a map, and you want accurate, you want accurate measurements without having to take your phone with you every single time, this can finally do that for you. So now, when I tested it, I found that it was quite useful. It worked well, it was accurate, and I just felt like it helped add to all the other metrics that it was tracking. So whether it was steps or calories or things like that, at least I could gauge from there. Okay, what is the relation between the two? Now it goes further than that, which is also related to the second thing, which is active zone minutes. Now active zone minutes basically refer to something that the World Health Organization and the American Heart Association, those are the two organizations that Fitbit is leaning on here for this. And the idea is that on average, if you're in an active zone for 22 minutes per day, so 22 times 7 in a week, you get 150 minutes. So that is on the low, that's pretty much what is recommended. Now, to get into an active zone, though, you have to have your heart rate hit fat burn, okay? Then beyond that, there's cardio and then peak. So as long as you're hitting fat burn, then you're technically in an active zone. And that's when the active zone minutes start to accumulate. If you can get into cardio or peak, those minutes start to double. So if you're in those more high intensity ranges where you're going to be breaking more of a sweat, the heart rate's going faster, you will end up getting more of your minutes that way. Now you can customize this. If you want to go higher than 150 over the course of the week, you can, or you can even sort of spread it out so that maybe you do it 3 days of the week instead of trying to do it every day. Things like that. There's a few different ways you can do that in the app, and that's that's helpful. One thing though that I really did like is that the zone minutes and the heart rate monitoring also plays into the GPS as well. So as I mentioned earlier, when you're looking at a route map of where you went, you're also going to be able to see how where you hit your peak or where you hit a certain zone, where were the active minutes ultimately along that route. So you can kind of see your peaks and valleys based on where you went and how you did. I like that for me personally. I'm sure a lot of you would, because at least it gives you some sort of an illustration of where you did well or where you feel you went well. Maybe you'll remember that, maybe you had a bit of a tougher stretch, going uphill perhaps, and so things like that. I mean, there's so many different variables, and I think that's helpful to have that in there. So again, it's nice to see that these new elements that are in the Charge 4 do play together in some ways, and that's one in particular, but there are others too. Another thing is Spotify. So if you are a Spotify premium subscriber, this is something you've probably been waiting for. Now we know that Fitbit has already added Spotify on some of the other devices, but it finally comes to a fitness band like this, and it's a little bit more intricate than simply just kind of seeing it there. So for example, you can control playback. So if you want to just pause, play, you want to skip a track, go back a track, things like that. You want to select a different playlist, you can do that. Now it's not all of your playlists, but you can see about a handful of them that you can select from. You can even change which devices that the playback comes from. So if you're at home and you want to change the playback from, let's say, your phone or your headphones to a speaker, like a smart speaker that you have, or a speaker that Spotify can connect with, you can do that too. Now bear in mind, this does not seem to work with Sonos speakers. It just, I don't know, it just is what it is, but I just could never get Sonos to work with the Charge 4 for whatever reason, at least through Spotify Connect. So the cool thing about it is that you can control playback while you're just using the device. The problem is that, well, not a problem, but I think one of the downsides is, of course, there's no offline playback, nor is there any storage on the device itself for you to do, to just play music basically without having to bring the phone at all. I mean, it's great. You have the GPS. You don't need the phone for that. Unfortunately, you will need the phone when it comes to music because all you can do is just control it. I do want to mention something about the sleep score because I think the sleep tracking is better in the Charge 4 than it was in the Charge 3. Now, it could be just me, but I just feel like it is. Now, the SpO2 sensor that's inside will measure blood oxygen saturation. So that can be very helpful when it comes to sleeping. You can see essentially whether or not your heart rate is really kind of pumping while you're asleep or whether it's resting. And then, that you might be able to glean some insight on something that could be happening. So for example, sleep apnea tends to have a lot of those fluctuations. And so it might at least give you a clue. It's not going to diagnose you with that, of course, but it's going to give you at least an idea that maybe you've got something like that going on. So I just like the fact that there is a lot happening while you're sleeping. So while you're wearing this and you're sleeping, there's at least a lot of things that are being tracked. And it just felt like to me that there was information that I felt could be useful. I couldn't perhaps interpret all of it properly. A doctor could, but it's something that you can show a doctor when you see them if you're having trouble sleeping especially. With all that said, Fitbit is claiming a 7-day battery life. That's not going to happen. The only way you'll get 7 days or even close to it is if you turn GPS off completely and you're not really using Spotify Connect and you're not really exercising a whole lot. It kind of defeats the purpose, I think, of getting the thing for the most part. But the reason why I say that is because ultimately with all the new features that are in there, particularly with GPS, which is known to be a battery drain on any device, along with everything else that's going on, all the tracking, everything that's happening, of course it's going to take some battery life out of it. So I think I tended to see about a 4-day lifespan, give or take. You might be able to stretch a little more. It might go a little lower depending on how active you are, but you're not going to get to a week. So after 4 days, you'll probably have to charge this up and then go from there. The good news is that it charges up pretty fast. So once you plug it in, I couldn't totally quantify how long it took, but it's not very long. So if let's say you're down to like 15%, you charge it up, within an hour, I mean, you're good to go easily. So it'll charge up pretty quickly at least. And last thing is, if you have a Charge 3, just keep the bands because they're going to work with the Charge 4. The one good thing I think Fitbit did in keeping the same design was that they did not mess with the bands and the straps. So whatever you're using with the Charge 3 totally fits on the Charge 4 perfectly. It's the same mechanism, same fit, same everything, and it's perfect. So I definitely like that. I had a couple of bands that I used with the Charge 3. I moved them over to the Charge 4 and it's fantastic. So it means that if you had bands that were not necessarily for exercise, but maybe just for going out or just for casual wear, you can still use those without having to buy new ones. And that is my review of the Fitbit Charge 4. For the Best Buy blog, I'm Teddy K. Thanks for watching.